Hello, good evening, welcome. It's Thursday evening. Chris Hughes from Rebound on Upstreamedia show. Um, Today, I thought I'd do a bit of a throwback Thursday. Uh, a feature I did quite a long time ago came to my attention because I'm currently in position of trying to make the website a bit more accessible for fans of a certain franchise. So the idea being that if you're a Bradford fan or a Solent fan or a Thames Valley fan, and you're new to the page, you want to read all the content on that club, to have like a tab or page where it's all the content of that club in that one place. So all the news stories to be found in one place. It's quite rare with Rebound finishing its second season. We've done a lot of features, so it's nice to have it a bit more coherent, cohesive way of someone finding out information club that you want to find out on. And so when I was going through, tagging the posts for that certain club, put it on that certain page, I noticed at the start of the season I did a prediction post. I totally forgot all about it and thought, oh, let's have a look, let's read it. Say, even though I wrote it myself, I've done quite a lot of features this year. You forget a few things. And I was really surprised about how well I did the predictions. Without going too much detail, I got 7 out of the top 8 teams right, one of the relegated teams. And I thought I'd talk a bit about what my thoughts were in sort of making those predictions, but also talk a bit about bits of surprising because things, obviously, this whole season has for many reasons for a lot of surprises of the NBL free agency. Obviously, the pandemic, we've obviously had a few injuries, so it's really hard when you make a prediction because especially something on the whole season, it's hard to get all the factors right to make that really good prediction. But so yeah, I was initially really surprised how well it went, but also want to sort of talk about it more, talk about what made me pick those predictions. So I post on the social media if you want to read the full feature. I won't be going in depth. I'm just taking a few things out that caught my eye. So when I did the feature, I sort of tried to explain a bit about why I picked the things I did or what came to my attention. I talked a bit about sort of 10 talking points, and I think some of those talking points are still current now. Especially the first one, I think what really struck my eye was Derby Trailblazers back last summer now, not this summer, signed former NBL MVP Malcolm Smith to a 2-year deal, and he's a really good talent for 2 years. Without knowing the ins and the outs of the deal, that speaks volumes of that player trusting the franchise and vice versa. The franchise trusting that player, so that's amazing. And he's a really talented player. So for him to say this is sticking on a flag for 2 years is a statement in itself. And I thought they'd do quite well. And they definitely surpassed my prediction, and they did really well. Especially, and I think I mentioned quite a few times today, they had a really strong 2020. And I'll go a bit more into teams, why they play so well in the bit. I also thought the Kestrel's acquisition of Brendan Okonkwo from rivals where Thunder's really important at retaining the playoff MVP Travis Charles. I don't think I ever seen Brendan play for the Kestrels, but it was from a person who looks at stats quite a lot. It's very easy to see why he dominated points, rebounds, and assists. He's very physically built. And you see very dominant in terms of those rebounds, especially in the APAC season, and to see how Josh can also be out massing him in the paint for those second chance points or the defensive boards. And definitely he's one of the many reasons why Hesh did so well. One person I thought was really good, but I think I was even surprised at how good he was Ryan Thunder's Cameron Hildreth, and I thought they'd be a threat with him, but again, I think that was another one, but they're about par where I predicted them, but I wasn't expecting Cameron Hildreth to be so much of part of that success. I thought he would probably be a start or the sixth man of the team. Again, I've got no basketball. It's literally a fan thinking. I'm sure everyone came into a different perspective, but I thought I was really surprised how much of an impact he had. not only in terms of the points, but all round game. I talked about it before, but in terms of the impact he made across points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks, no player in the league did better at the collective 5 in total. So he was amazing off court. And I obviously mentioned about Tampa Cavaliers. I was really impressed by their transactions. They bought Taylor Johnson off Leicester Warriors and Blake Frapperton. Again, even though I thought they'd do well, I was really surprised how well those two guys did. I obviously found Taylor Johnson thought he was a really good player at Leicester. But even though his stats improved massively, if you look at his stats with Dave Owen, it's easy to see how much he jumped up, and he was a dominant force in that team as well, one of the stars from this season. And then after I said that I was 10 talkables, there's others on there. Obviously, you go back and read the feature. Those ones I thought were most pertinent. And even though I predicted them, in my head, I didn't think it'd be as big effect as it was. And, I was quite surprised in a good way how those players from Tennessee Cavaliers or Cameron Hildreth from Worthing or Brendan from Kestrel or Travis coming back again. I was surprised how much of an impact those guys had on their respective teams. And obviously, being a Kestrel's fan, there will be a little bit of bias, try not to be. And I know I see that predictions, and also I did a bit of Focus Hoops podcast, sort of pause me like that. I was at the time I did the feature because I knew I was going to come on the Focus Hoops podcast to talk about my predictions, but I also want to have something on paper, so for me to think about when I'm on the podcast for the first time, and also start to publish something to go along with that podcast as well. And in my head, there was 4 teams in my head I thought would win it. I thought the Kestrels would, because they won it last season. They're tied leaders, and they were tied leaders the season before, but ultimately come second. I thought they would do well, and I definitely think for me it's a sense that each season Matt Diamond and the team seemed to recruit better than they did before, and that was evident in terms of their success this season. Even though I was a Kesh fan, I was very sort of cautious. I thought there's a lot of strength in that league of Derby, Worthing, Hemel. There's a lot of strong teams up, and I wasn't really too sure. I was a bit nervous about their chances, but I was quite lucky as Sarah predicted top 2 in the right order, but I wasn't sort of like 100% certain. It was a whim of a guess, really, let's say, because I think one thing I've seen from this season, and my thoughts coming into the season matched, was that the talent top of the NBL, State Everton, is very strong and can match the BBL. So I did the feature sort of just with A as prep and B as sort of something to have as well as the podcast. And it's been great. I was just looking back before every feature done to aid me in this new project of categorise all the features with each club in the NBL and all the YouTube videos I've done. And I just realised very soon it's like 46th video for lockdown period. It's amazing. I really enjoyed the process, having the opportunity with Rupert, and it's a great talking hoops, and all the opportunities I've had this season I'm really grateful, and it's really helped myself, my brand, and also I think it's really helped make the league having that content out there. Not just the rebound content, Upstreamedia content, anyone out there making content, I praise you guys, because it's a tough environment we're turning in, but I think we all do really good work promoting British basketball. I'm just hoping next season we can carry out momentum and grow the game even more. It definitely deserves that TLC. It's definitely at the moment. Back to the feature, so we were talking a bit about the predictions, and I thought it would be a good idea not just to talk about predictions, sort of talk a bit about the season too. After those 10 talking points, I think you sort of talked a bit more about why I thought teams win the title. Um, I was a bit unsure about Keshel's going into it to say with quite a lot of teams, they would put US imports in, and you're never too sure how good they'll be. Typically, the US imports seem to be the more dominant force, and teams that's definitely going by the NBL's team of the year, and obviously on stats, and you also see a lot of American presence in the leaders on the league, both points, rebounds, most assists. Not to say homegrown players don't have that impact, but it's definitely, I think a lot of fans look to see what the import player is, and definitely something that keeps sort of the fans looking and thinking whether will that player be the one to make that big impact for my club. And I talked a bit about, I definitely thought Worthing could be up there, say, especially on the back of coming joint first, you say, with Keshel's last season, their strong playoff season. And I think I wasn't too sure. I was very excited to see them get Cameron Hildreth, and obviously Cyan Alex are very proven at this level. And I was a bit sure. I say, being a fan, it's sort of, you don't have those players or coaching insights to really make that real sound judgment. But I definitely thought they'd be up there, and I think I predicted them to be third, and they came fifth. And then, sort of half an hour before I came on air, I was like, it's hard to really analyse the season and say that my predictions are warranted, because obviously we didn't get to see the end of the season, and obviously the table could have changed quite a lot. And I know, thinking back to that last weekend, I felt sorry for a few teams because there's some really tough fixtures that last weekend of the season. I'll get to that in a minute. Because I think the table is still reasonably open for it to change somewhat, depending on the remaining three fixtures. I say some teams had more, some teams had less, but there was definitely wiggle room for maybe like the top 4 or 5 to change. Most of the Kestrels did wrap up the title within regular season, but they probably would have had some tough games to see if they could actually remain unbeaten. And I'll break that all down. I think I'll probably start from the top and bottom, work my way up in terms of what I predicted, how it finished, and maybe how it could have changed, because a lot of places weren't really written. It was the league's decision on how to finish the season that essentially determined their fate. But before that, I sort of talked about the MVP, and obviously Ian Smith got the MVP, and I was thinking it might be like Martel or Sayer or Travis, and they all had really good seasons. But I think all 3 of them, with no disrespect to them, they're all really good players, but they were all very talented rosters. I think, like I mentioned it already, I wasn't sure the impact Taylor had, and obviously having such a player like Taylor shine really well, it not lessens the effect of certain players, but then obviously if that player's doing really well, taking all the shots, you get less shots. And I definitely looked into it. I think Sayer, Travis, and Martel all had less shots this season, proving stuff, and you never know if they had more shots when they even had bigger games. And I think that's a rabbit hole for another episode, another show. But it was interesting that I was a bit wrong with all those players. Just say Ian Smith, Dave Kestrels, wasn't Travis that's even got MVP. And I'm sure, I say from my personal opinion, pretty much any of the Kestrels players probably could have got MVP. But obviously Lee picked Ian. That was a decision. That was really a good decision. But yeah, it's interesting to say the 3 players I picked probably, arguably were one of the strongest players in the team. But you could have said, actually, if I picked 3 other players on the team, those picks would look just as good. So obviously Cameron Hildreth had an amazing season. Alex Rooney had an amazing season. Hakeem Sia had an amazing season. Taylor Johnson had an amazing season. And obviously the 3 I had, mentioned an amazing season, but this obviously shows the strength and depth of those three teams, and we'll get onto it a bit later. But I definitely feel from the end of the season that any three of those teams who had the BBL trophy season the Kestrels had, we'll break that down because I don't think if someone asked me how I thought any of those the two teams involved in BBL trophy would not, I think it would have been the fan in me would have set up a glass half full situation rather than the actual a logical sort of NBL fan or unbiased sort of commentator lead. I don't think I would have predicted Kestrel at semi-final at the start of the season. I might have said they might have got to overtime in the first round. Obviously, it depends who they got, but I think a lot of people were surprised how well Kestrel were did in the BBL trophy, but also in the NBL itself. And then I talked about other players, and I sort of broke down the teams and getting to look in a bit more detail. But the feature sort of covered a bit about the Loughborough guys. I was talking about Reece Pinnock and Jonas Diederich, how they impact the team. That's definitely evident, and we'll break that down when I go to their team. And we put a few highlight videos in there, so there's a lot to read and watch if you head to watch the feature. Don't feel just because I've talked about today, there's a lot more discussed in the feature. I'm just literally covering the tip of the iceberg stuff. So, but I say I'm going towards the table now, and on initial look, I was really surprised how well I did. But then I reflected actually if the league had finished when it should have finished, maybe my riches were I was just fortunate of the situation. So obviously the league table, I'll just quickly recap. So the actual league table, not my prediction, league table finished in this way. Kestrel's first, Thames Valley second, Derby Trailblazers third, Hemelstorm fourth, Worthing Thunder fifth, Reading Rockets sixth, Loughborough Riders sixth, Reading Rockets seventh, and then Bradford Giants had that final eighth playoff position spot. Leicester Warriors finished ninth, the Hoods finished 10th. Yep, sorry, I was double checking I didn't want to say the wrong answer. And then Essex Barking finished above the dotted line, with West Midlands Warriors and Liverpool finishing in the last two spaces. So, going on to what I thought would finish the league, and I'll sort of break down why. But I must admit, I wasn't too sure. I was making an educated guess and sort of wasn't 100% sure. So, I thought that I kind of thought the bottom 4 or 5 would be quite close, just on the basis that what's been the last few seasons, player recruitments, unknown factors. I wasn't too sure on some things. I wasn't sure how it was going to happen. But again, so bottom 2, I thought it was Westminster Warriors and Leicester. And it was for no particular reason. I hate, when I was asked on the show, I thought, I don't, it's not so I like doing predictions and do badly, because I think it's not that. It's just, I think in a balanced league, there are going to be some teams who maybe unfancied, underdogs, and it was uncomfortable, but I kind of thought I wanted to have a little think about it. And I wasn't sure Leicester because I felt they lost Taylor Johnson, they lost 1 or 2 others, and I was like, I wasn't sure how they'd get on. And in hindsight, obviously, I was really wrong because they're one of the teams that really challenged for the playoffs. So they obviously did really well. Even though I predicted Westminster Warriors finish last, it wasn't. It was more because I didn't really know much about the roster, and obviously, I think when I was starting at the top, and I could see more reason for the other teams to finish above them. It wasn't because I didn't think they were good enough. It's just that I saw more reason in other teams staying up. But it's interesting because I was looking back at the league now, because obviously they only just finished above the dotted line. And it was really fortunate when the league takes that decision to relegate and so on based on incomplete data. It's not all the games are done and dusted. And I was sort of looking through the last fixtures, and I thought it's really hard to say it was a just decision or an unjust decision, and that's not for me to decide. I'm a fan first, and only been doing about 2 years. I'm not an authority figure to make that sort of judgment, but on paper it looked very tough to see him survive because they obviously had their fate in their own hands, but they had 2 games remaining. Other teams had a bit more. Barking will go into a little bit, had much more, but that's another reason. But they would have had the Warriors would have had some tough games, but it's not to mean they wouldn't be tough for the other teams. So they would have had Thames Valley Cavaliers at home, and then they've had Derby Travelers also at home. Both teams, you're not sure what the psyche for them going into it is, whether they fancy it. There's a lot of, yes, we are talking about the psychological aspects as well, and the mental aspects of the game. And a local derby would be a really great game to see. It was really interesting to see how that game done. That was one of the games I thought when the season ended shortly, I thought, oh gosh, that'd be a really good game to watch. And obviously, Derby Trailblazers, I mentioned so many times, are one of the strongest teams in 2020 and almost sort of jumped in those top 4 places. We mentioned they finished first. It would be interesting to see that go. I think that would be a really tough game for both teams. And again, it's really hard for the league, and I don't want this video to come across as criticising the league or criticising clubs. Just merely reflect on my predictions, and also maybe what might happen if we had this rest of the season on. And obviously, Barking Abbey just beat the drop. And on paper, I think some people might be surprised to hear they had 4 games remaining to safety. And one of the reasons they had 4 remaining was because they went to Europe with a young side in the Adidas Next Generation tournament. But on paper, I'm not saying actually, their game seemed a little bit more winnable, and obviously I think they had one more win in the column as well to sort of protect them, and I think the head-to-head was sort of leaning their way as well. But they had a tough test to away to the Kestrels, and obviously Kestrels probably still want to keep that unbeaten status. They've been having a race at Essex, and that would be a really exciting game because neither team was safe. Essex obviously had the benefit of the NBL free agency, and I'll go a bit more into detail when I'm talking about Essex. And they also had games away to Hemel Storm and Loughborough, and they would have been tough. As I mentioned, they're all 3 out of 4 playoff sides, so it would have been tough for them to get wins out of. But maybe that 4th win they had was enough. But I think the biggest shame of the season finishing early is the what if factor, because, as I said, the league could have changed in so many different ways. And as we get up the table, I'll sort of go into that a bit more because I feel the fixtures we finished on were unfortunate, some unfortunate, and fortunate for others too. And I say we talked about 14th, 13th, and I was really fortunate. I got 12th and 11th correct in the right order. I'm not proud of particular teams that maybe did do as well as others, but I kind of thought maybe this should be more likely to be down there. And I think for a few reasons was historically Barking and Academy side. Obviously, had a really good season. I think maybe 3 or 4 years ago, they won the playoff final in their first NBL season, but typically they have been close to the bottom. So it was very interesting how they got on, and they obviously lost a few players. I wasn't sure how the new players came up, but I've been really impressed by especially if you consider compared to other clubs, they've been travelling to Europe. They obviously have multiple competitions to worry about, not just the NBL. I believe they're in the junior competition too, and I say for young side competing men's leagues, they admirable. They had a good season, even though maybe like people say, oh, well, Tulsa's not great, but actually think about the fact they have to travel to Europe. They've also quite a young core, and a lot of the players from Peru's their first season, and I thought they played really well. And they especially some of the games, they were quite close. I mean, even the Kestrels one, I think actually they probably had the closest draw number than quite a lot of teams. So hats off to them. And then obviously Essex, there's a lot to talk about when you talk about Essex season. They announced some of their players they finished the NBL season with. They lost the guest which had on Monday, Lee Hodges, Sam Newman. And it was interesting to talk to Lee about that move. And for me, I felt there were two really influential players. Sam Newman was one of the few players this season to get a triple-double. And obviously Lee is a very tall physical presence. Not many teams are both having a 7-foot player in the NBL. So that was really interesting. And sort of going on the height issue, the height subject. I'm currently doing a feature on rebounding stats. The guys at Ballers Voice, shout out if you're listening, suggested it'd be really interesting to look at the teams with the average height and also who's tallest in the league. And already I'm seeing, like, I think Graham and English literature student read for meaning that if you take those stats with a pinch of salt, especially at a team like Essex, who recruited in mid-season, or your players with injuries, hard to really take an average height too seriously because it depends how long those players play on the floor or how many games were said player actually playing. So you sell certain teams got players 208 centimeters tall, but you go and look, you play 5 out of the 14 games. So if you're looking at it as a stat or bit of information, it's always good to have a bit of pinch of salt. But it's interesting to look at and see the average height in the NBL, and maybe at some point I'll look at that compared to the average height in the BBL, see if there's any differences. But essentially, go back to the prediction report, so it's really hard for those teams to do well because of the fact they've lost players. Obviously, I think maybe again there's lots of conversation calling people outside not outside in the club. Say obviously have a better understanding how the club works, but just from the outside in, I felt a few of the players going that could cause difference. But again, I sort of didn't want this show to left it as more of a throwback show, sort of to reflect on the season gone and sort of the talking point. Sorry. Then number 10, I put Liverpool, and for me, I'll be honest, there's not much news out there on the leagues outside NBL 1, and it's definitely something I want to expand upon myself. Got a few guests from NBL 2 coming up next week, so that'd be really good. And I think we need to further say a bit more about the league. But something I noticed quite recently was I did a feature on it, again, this feature's in what was I remembered when I was categorising the posts that mentioned certain teams. And what's really struck me, I think it was in the last 6 seasons, 11 of 12 teams that have come up from NBL 2 are still there. So when I was looking at it, I thought, that must mean there's some sort of momentum going. And Liverpool last season were unbeaten in regular season in the NBL. And I thought maybe that momentum would carry on. We've seen the likes of Kestrels, Loughborough, and many others. And a lot of these new teams sort of stayed then. When I was doing the feature, a lot of them were in the top 6. So yeah, definitely. So in my back of my head, I was thinking, maybe they did carry on. There must be something about having that momentum, having that chemistry. The squad hadn't changed much. Going back to the Smiths, I was quite aware they lost Jonathan Ashley, a key component. That's probably why I put them down a bit lower. Liverpool, to what I knew, hadn't lost anyone. Even actually, when I was doing that feature, I do remember, but I think it was a day before I did that feature. I had no idea at all on the Liverpool roster. I don't think anyone did across England. Again, it's not to mention as criticism, but it's more challenges clubs face having the resources to actually do that. And I say that feature came out on 27th of December, sorry, 27th of September, which I think it's like a week before the season started. So really good time to have that prediction, and obviously on the podcast, my first podcast talk about the league. So I think we've got the 8 o'clock clap for Cares for here in the background. Apologies there. So, sorry, I forgot. So Liverpool. So again, it was sort of hard for me to make a real judgment because what I understood from people, from sources, from their rosters had been pretty much the same, but there had been no official announcement. So I was sort of blindly guessing, saying I kind of thought with what I knew about the NBL 2 teams doing well, coming up to the NBL 1, I thought maybe that might be the case with Liverpool, especially on the back of the beaten season. But they actually finished bottom. And I think they were officially relegated maybe 1 or 2 weeks before the season closed. So it was interesting to see, but really interesting word, but it was sort of when I was talking about earlier, but it was a bit of a regret, but maybe the season ended because clubs couldn't finish in different positions. But obviously the NBL were quite fortunate, but no teams are feeling upset by not finishing first or upset by finishing last. If that makes sense. That fate had been decided. And then going a bit further up the table, so we talk about 10th, 9th. So I predicted. So make sure I look at the right team. Bradford Dragons to finish 9th, and as I said, Leicester Warriors finished 9th. It was really interesting to say who could go after read the feature, sort of talking about in depth, but Bradford missed out on the playoffs last season, I believe. And I was like, oh, no, they didn't. So did they? No, they missed out. Leicester Warriors had that 8th place, and I was kind of thinking maybe that might happen again, or I wasn't too sure. And I really, last season, if my memory serves me correctly, it was there was sort of a bit of a 4-horse race for the playoffs, and it was really interesting watching that go down. And I did mention, I wasn't trying to cover all bases. I genuinely did think that maybe Bradford could make a late charge for us, and they ended up did because they were. I think they had 8 spots for quite a while, but their 2020 form, so I mentioned quite a lot of was really strong. But I say it's really hard to predict everything right. That wasn't my intention. I thought they'd be there or thereabouts, and they were with their 8th place finish. I then had Derby as 7th, and again in the feature I said how they made a late surge. And obviously, as mentioned earlier, Derby finished 3rd. Derby were one of the toughest teams in 2020, so I don't think many could argue that they shouldn't have finished 3rd. That's not what I'm trying to say here. It's that they weren't 3rd for, I think it was the last 2 games they got there, and it was sort of on the back of Loughborough dropping. And I think if you were to know you're finishing the season, I don't think many people would pick to finish the season with a back-to-back away games for Thames Valley Cavaliers and Team Solar Kestrels. That's all I mean, where maybe some position unfair. I think both those games, so I watched them in person, commentated on the latter. Loughborough played really well, and they were 3rd going into that weekend, and having those 2 games, which they got lost in, they ended up finishing 6th. So that's a massive jump, and you think, in theory, if they had other games to finish on, maybe could they finish more higher, or would other teams finish in the same place? So that's what I meant by it. And in a second, I'll sort of go into a bit more depth about maybe what key games we missed, because I think a lot of those key games have really determined the positions from certainly from 3rd to 6th. I think 7th and 8th kind of felt a bit more on the basis of probability being those teams, but they definitely had a shout. They just needed a bit more to go their way. Um, so again, I'll get to that when I talk about the actual players, which at the moment is just talking about Derby, me predicting them wrong at eighth. So then going up to seven, I'll try to speed. I'll try it to more, I'll say juicy, but more discussive parts to say to read the features, find out the exact position. I don't want to miss teams out and sort of talk a bit why each team finished the way they did. I mean, I thought Hemel Storm would probably finish there because I think Hemel Storm. So what's that, mate? So I thought Hemel Storm would definitely finish seventh. I wasn't sure, with no background understanding on the talents of Greg Polian and Mike Williams Jr. I wasn't too sure how they do. I know a lot of people around me would say, "Oh, Mike Williams is great because part of Rutgers." In my head, I was like, having not seen Rutgers, I'm always a bit wary of really say, "Oh, just because someone's playing for that team means they're a really good player." But actually, turns out he was amazing and one of the league's best players, along with so many other talents. In my head, I thought they'd do really well because I thought, from a negative point of view, I was wondering how they'd deal with the loss of Blaine Freckleton, and turns out that was fine because Mike Williams Jr. and Greg Polian were really good assets for them. But I also thought they'd do well because of having Lee Hodges, Sam Newman join, both established NBL players. So, and I wasn't too sure about when you get to the top of place, the higher place becomes a bit harder because in my mind, I was like, as I mentioned, I thought Keshel's TBC would do well. I thought Mervyn would do well. I thought Reading would do well. Reading, for people who don't know, really sort of got what's it called it? They've really established those top five space. If you look back in the last 15 seasons, you count the amount of times they've not been in the top five on one hand, even less. It's about 3 or 4 occurrences when they haven't finished those top 5 places. So I was like, it was hard for me to fit a team outside those in the top 7. Which obviously I maybe regret's too strong a word, but obviously in hindsight, Hemel were pretty much that third horse in that 3-horse race for most of the season. So definitely more than deserved to be up there and say they finished season 4th. And in a bit, I'll break down the big games that maybe could have changed things at the top. I then went for the Hoods, and I think that was the only team that I predicted Fisher Class that didn't. And a lot of that was from perception of signings. What I really loved when the Hoods were announced that they made it sort of really exciting. The graphics had gold behind. It felt like a feel good. Definitely a message from social media chats that they were hoping for gold, they were hoping for success. And the players I didn't have any background knowledge of before. I think 1 or 2 I'd heard of. And I thought it was a lot of unknowns, but I thought maybe they'd back up their claims. I put them 7th. Wasn't too far, say they finished 10th, but I definitely thought they would have a good season. In terms of context, it was really good. I had a YouTube live with Tom Atkinson, and it was really good talking to him, and he sort of broke down the season, where things did well. So if you haven't watched that episode, go watch. It's a really good one. We did the show a couple of hours later because he's in Australia to case for the time difference out there. And really great he came on to talk to Hughes. He followed quite actively on social media. He does these trick shots with ping pong balls or basketballs. Really entertaining to watch. Sure, he'll do more of those in coming weeks. So, let's say, sort of about breaking down the playoff, I correctly guessed that 7 out of 8 teams will be in the playoffs. And I do feel like we are sort of seeing a little bit of divide, kept out word, and I want to cross negative, but there are teams in the NBL who you can see they have a bit of a bigger budget, bigger fan base. And it's not in a negative way, but it doesn't mean that because you've got all those things in place that success is guaranteed. It just makes it, I don't want to say easier, but it definitely helps, if that makes sense. And for me, when I was looking at my top five, it was Kestrels, Tempe Cavaliers, Rowan Thunder, Reading Rockets, and Loughborough. I think Loughborough have never finished outside the top five since they joined the league NBL2. And again, that sort of was one of the aspects I thought maybe the NBL2 side to do well because we've seen that success before. Kestrel's been doing better each season, that's why I put them a bit higher. I put TBC up high because he were last season. And one thing I wanted to mention, I just realised it now, is when I talked to a lot of players last season, I'm really surprised how open and honest they are. And I've really enjoyed all my chats with all players. They're all really honest chats, very open and honest in terms of being honest about mental health. But also, I don't feel like anyone's trying to sell you a false story. Initially, when I learned a bit about Tenerife Cavaliers, say their season last season, a lot of players were like, they were saying they weren't happy with that, and I was literally surprised. But actually, I had to really see they got a strong team, they got a good coach, and obviously all their games streamed by this channel, so it's great to watch that and learn more about the team. And I really thought with a lot of players coming to me saying they weren't, I think they finished third last season, they weren't happy with that. I thought, oh, I'll put them a second, so I think they might. And I knew playing for Exeter's experienced NBL player, that kind of went into my thinking. And yes, I thought that would be good. That would be good. And also Taylor Johnson came here from Leicester. So I said, whatever I put as number 3, I thought it's quite hard to see him not be within the top 4 or 5 because they almost won the title last season. They won their playoff finalists. Their style hadn't changed too much. I expected a bit of a drop because obviously they lost Brendan, but I thought they'd do pretty okay because I re-rated Cameron for what I've seen of him from clips. Say he surpassed my expectations, but I say I come in as a fan, not as a coach or player. It's just merely from what I see in terms of what's on social media marketing-wise, videos out there. But for me, I wasn't certain he'd finish top 5. I just felt they probably more likely to do on the basis of the squad they had, past successes, and also just maybe just a gut instinct, I say, but wasn't certain. And then to quickly round up what I thought was in top 5, say most of them were similar. I thought, top 6, Loughborough had at 6, Reading 5. Oh, sorry, the math's awful there. And the Hoods at 6, Loughborough at 5, Reading at 4th, Worthing 3, Thames Valley 2, and Kestrel's 1. And I don't want to go into it too much detail because I am about to mention a bit, but all those positions to change. So if I was to get those in the right order, it's only by chance just the season finished it wasn't. Things had changed. So obviously talked a bit about the bottom, how both teams had really tough games. Barkley obviously had a couple of games hands of their appearance in the Adidas Next Generation tournament. And we covered that bit. But I was looking at the fixture and looking at what fixtures I thought could change it, and there was quite a few big games. Bearing in mind missing those 3 games each left, you're talking about two handful of games involved in the top 6, and I think a lot of them were games that were, as you would call, 6 points in sense, but there was a lot wider on them. And I just basically picked 6 of them. There was more that I think would have played a big difference to the table. So I'll start with the first one. So Bradford Dragons versus Derby. Unfortunately, I remember this one because I think this was our featured preview for next week. So I'd already read into it, asked players questions, got stats going, and I say they're both top 4 in terms of form in 2020, so it was a really good game to watch. Bradford obviously finished 8th. And I don't think they could have moved too high up, but I think they could have made an impact for other teams. Obviously, I mentioned that heading into that weekend, you had a top four of Kestrels, Tenerife Cavaliers, Hemel, and Loughborough. And I remember commentating on the last game of the season for Tenerife Cavaliers. Probably actually the last game to be streamed live, and that was Tenerife Cavaliers versus Loughborough. Then a little bit down the road, Hemel played Kestrels, and obviously it was that game that made Kestrel on table. But if you look at Loughborough game that weekend, they obviously played Kestrels and Tenerife Cavaliers, and 2 games finished tough. 2 games to finish the season were quite tough for them, and obviously those 2 losses culminated in them finishing lower than Derby. But actually, if you look a bit more deep into the games, you can see how close they were. So Loughborough versus Kestrels, I was there in person watching, cheering for Kestrels I do, my sort of as a fan. But actually, it was one of the closest games I've seen all season, not just as Kestrels. I think, before the BBL Trophy final, but it was probably the closest game I've seen. Loughborough had the lead at times. I remember tweeting that I thought they were going to be party poopers. They had the lead at times. They were very close. And really the second team in all competitions. In all competition, I had to think that they were one of 2 teams to only lose to Kestrels by less a single digit. So the other team was Hemel, but say amazing feat from that to take Kestrels all the way. Then the next day, again away from home, I think I'm not sure whether they travel back to Loughborough that evening or stay somewhere in between. Say it's a long journey back. If they've gone from Kestrels to Loughborough, they played amazingly against Tenerife Cavaliers. They I think pretty much had the lead throughout until the 4th quarter. So those 2 losses meant they dropped down from a 3rd to a 6th place finish. And then I'm about to sort of look at other games, and maybe they could have finished higher, and again, it's a tip of the ice. You can look at all the season, so you say, sometimes I don't like just sort of saying, if they had different last game, they could have finished differently. Because you could also apply it to a game. You could say, if X player did make that mistake, they would have won the game. But that's not 100% true, because you're obviously saying that all the other factors did contribute in a positive way. You could play that game 100 times and a certain play could go differently. I'm just saying that as it happened, that was unfortunate, because before that situation they weren't. But there's quite a few games left that could have determined the lead a different way. And again, as I said, I don't want it to seem as criticism. I'm just sort of stating facts. It was never going to be. I don't think I could have thought hooray, but the league could finish it in a different way. It's always a bit hard. And on the paper of it, because there's no playoffs to come to, it's pretty inconsequential. Say, that team should have finished 3rd or that team should have finished 2nd, because at the end of the day, the places where people finish in the season only return to playoff places. But it's interesting to look at. I kind of thought I had to look at other fixtures that we also had. So I mentioned Brad Dragons, Derby Trailblazers. There was Reading Worthing, that would be a really good game. That was 5th versus 7th, so going to be a close game. You had Derby versus Kestrels. That would be a really tough game for both teams. Obviously, not much at play. Sort of Kestrels finishing 1st. They weren't going to drop to 2nd, but it could be a really tough game for Derby. A loss in their common can affect their places. Then you had Loughborough versus Reading. Again, 6th versus 7th for that instant. Going to be a really good, interesting game to watch. And then finally, there's 2 more, sorry. Kestrels TBC. And again, I mentioned Kestrels couldn't not finish 1st, but that would be a really close game with 2 of the top teams in the league going against each other. I think that would be a game a lot of people would have liked to watch, and it could affect the table because even though TBC finished second, maybe other teams should have done, but I think when you look at the table and you see that the Kestrels, Thames Cavaliers, Hemel, all were sort of dominant throughout, you can't be too negative about the way the league finished first, second, fourth, because they're there or thereabouts all season. But it would have been interesting to see those games take place because obviously that would have had a factor on how the season finished. And I kind of want to finish on BBL Trophy because I don't think if I talked a bit about that in my prediction or the National Cup, I don't think I would be anywhere near BBL Trophy final place for the Kestrels, and I think that's really amazing for the Kestrels as a franchise, but also the league itself. It really shows how the league has developed. I would have loved to see maybe how far one got if they were on the other side of the draw. I think it was a little, from an NBL fan perspective, it was a shame that both his teams only really could test themselves once versus BBL Trophy opposition before playing each other. I think obviously Kestrels proved they can compete with many other teams, but I think Worthington done. I also think the way the league table finished, I think showed a few of the other teams could too. Like Tesco Cavaliers, Derby, Hemel, Worthing. We saw Worthing, and even Loughborough. I don't think I really touched on it much when I saw their season, but the impact Jonas Dietrich and Reece Pinnett had was amazing because they were nowhere near that third position in January. I'm sure they would be saying, not horribly, I don't mean horrible way, that the results hadn't gone the way they wanted to, but obviously many other factors at play, not just them coming in, the chemistry, maybe their form was improved exponentially once A2 came back and they were a championship force, and I think they would have done by the BBL Trophy too. And I'm really interested to see where both players end up next season. Obviously, Reece had his most capped Loughborough player. It'd be interesting whether he's in the BBL or off to Europe. I'm sure he'll do well. But I kind of want to sort of finish with BBL Trophy. So, one reason Kestrels did really well in it was that they took advantage of the extra American rule. And obviously, in recent weeks, we've seen the BBL add a fourth American to it. And I don't want to I'd be really interested to be a fly on the wall to see what was behind that decision. And I think it's going to be really good for the league on the whole because it means added competition. But in terms of NBL clubs, they have performed in the BBL. I wonder whether we'll see that again. Because sometimes having the extra beat the American may mean it's a stronger team. So that'd be really interesting to see how the NBL teams do next season BBL Trophy. I'll be interested to see how they get on. It might be a little bit harder for them, or might just be hard on the basis that BBL teams are like, oh gosh, we've got, not saying not take it seriously, but they'll be even more serious moving forward to make sure they're making it further. So that kind of reminded me of I kind of picked it because I thought, A, I forgot I'd done the predictions, B, I thought it was interesting that I got some right, but I thought it'd be good to sort of talk a bit about the factors around them. I covered some. There were others like injuries. I think I put Reading to finish fourth, finish seventh. Again, I think they could have finished higher depending on how those games I mentioned came out. But I think obviously losing AJ was a big blow for them, but Leo France came in. And I think that's what I've really enjoyed this league. There's so much gone on. Not saying I enjoyed the injuries, but I mean, I think there's a lot more information out there. I think the league's a lot more competitive in terms of very strong at the top, and I think it's really good to help the game grow. So I've really enjoyed the season, and from my perspective, I feel like the league's got stronger and stronger. And only as a fan, I'm not a player coach. I'm hoping you guys really enjoy it. and I hope people who are new to the NBA able to see why maybe I'm so passionate about it and enjoy it, because it's a really good league. Uh, from 1 to 14, it's great, and there's some great players, great guys, great stories, and hoping next 2 weeks cover some of that. Um, and also be interested to see what happens next season. And Ben, I've sort of wanted to sort of touch upon what I think will happen next season. So it's hard to make a prediction to say. Well, I did it last September. Obviously, I knew a bit about the franchises, who's on each team. Um, you kind of knew who's coming back, and I think we're in a situation now where we don't know what's to happen. From a level such as any sort of transfer visas might go. We don't know if Americans will be able to come over. We have to see. But there's definitely seems to be a trend, and I sort of want to sort of comment on that finally. I get the gist, maybe the Keshel's team might be reasonably similar. Again, I've not those sources, just many things I pick up here and now, like, oh, okay, maybe they might still be together. But you can never know. Wait and see. And I think it goes to a lot of clubs, just wait to see what happens. But if I had to sort of guess a few teams I think would do well, I think Derby would do well, just what I mentioned earlier about Matt Smith having a 2-year contract. I think they're definitely trying to build something there. I think when you put someone on a 2-year contract, just kind of outside the box, you've got to have that sort of plan there. But how much COVID will affect any of these teams' plans, it's hard to say at the moment, but I think teams that are around this season may or may not do well next season. I think Keshel's probably up there, Tefe Harris probably up there. Be interested to see what Loughborough side looks like, so they'll probably make a few changes each season, but I think one thing I learned a lot this season is the passion of coaches behind them to make each team competitive, and to make it really exciting. If you didn't watch it, I had Coach Jam on a few weeks ago. That was a really great show. He's the head coach there. He's also part of GB Junior's setup, and also the Leicester Ryder assistant coach. And it was really good talking to him. He hasn't seen it. He's a really passionate guy, and his ethos is to try and make people the best versions of themselves. Because I think it's quite like maybe all the guys he coaches may not become basketball players, who also haven't been the best. If that's best artist or the best social media guy, or whatever they want to be, help them become the best set. And I think that's a really good way to have it. And I think one thing I learned from his conversation, but there's a real incentive carrot for his players, because they obviously got the third team, the second team, the first team, and then the BBL trophy. So for a player part of that franchise, there's always something for them to, an incentive for them to prove to go up through his team. So that's, I reckon they're probably up there. And I think a lot of teams that have their own facilities, that it's a little bit more beneficial for them because it cuts the cost. It means there's no restrictions over training. I think the more I followed him, the more I realised some of the challenges a lot of the guys face, because I think it's so easy as a fan to think, oh, it's great, everything's good. And I think that actually, yes, it's a great game watching, but for that game to go on, you need the guys to be able to have a job when they go to team training. They need to have the session on, the conflictions with court might mean they can't train as much as they want to, or got balance and work-life balance. A lot of these guys do work full-time or study full-time, or the coach might have to coach a lot of teams. So I think it's really hard to make a prediction. I think it's quite fortunate because of the way the season ended. And I think a lot of those games I mentioned, team games, they probably would have changed the team quite a lot. And maybe some of my prediction might be so right. So I think that's the thing. When you make a prediction, you never know if it's going to be right or wrong. So I was quite fortunate a lot of them were right in terms of validation of my thinking, but I think a lot of it's down to chance. And also, it's been a very unique season with the COVID and breaking up. And I think that's everyone talk about. The motivation to talk about was sort of to get people thinking about a few things. We discussed quite a few topics. So I think there's a lot there for you to think about. And also, it's quite nice this time to look back at what went well in the season. So a lot of things went well. Really good season. I think for the NBL, the season was really good for the league. I think we've seen a lot of interest in NBL 2 and 3 from a lot of stories happened recently. We've had head coach on to play coach BBL. We've had NBL teams go away and BBL trophy. And they've been really good games. And I think as a product, the NBL's a really good place. And we'll play NBL live. So I'm really excited to see what happens next season. Currently, I've had no word about what the situation will be like or when the game says it started. But when I do, I'll obviously disseminate that news to yourselves. Obviously, Basketball England are preparing with their plan for plan, so I'd be looking forward to see what that template looks like. I mean, from my perspective, I can definitely understand maybe why people might be cautious to go back and watch games after the thing. But I think if the safety aspect's there for the fans, I think there should be no reason why a safe environment could be there for us to watch basketball. We don't know what the situation will be like in terms of the infections, but I think if maybe people are thinking about, oh, shall we get like masks out so fans buy a mask with their team's logo on it, or having hand washing facilities available. Most sorts of think about those sort of lines. But obviously, you have the clubs got their own restrictions in terms of what they're thinking. Obviously, if I play at Les Centres, it's about what the Les Centre will be doing at the time. So I think my thoughts are out there for all the clubs out there. I really hope that any of the negatives, but apart from this COVID, are minimal for each club, because I really hope that all clubs come back in really good shape to make for a great season for us to watch, really. So that's really important. And I really hope, everyone's staying well, staying safe, because I know it's really difficult. I mean, for me, from a personal point of view, being one of these guys that has to furlough, I'm not currently working my job because of my health condition. And I think now it's week 10. It's a little bit harder than it was maybe in week 1, 2, 3. And I'm really grateful for the show. Love doing the show, talk to you guys. Got all next week's show lined up. I think maybe next week, maybe I'll drop down to 3 shows. I think it's just whether what the situation bring to us. I think I might either need to prepare to go back to work, or I just need to be looking after myself a bit more, making sure I'm in best shape possible, really. And it's really important to make sure we're looking after ourselves and having those conversations with family and doing lots of different things to keep us going. I think for me, even both my health condition, I'm meant to be staying in. I think as much as there's negativity about that Dominic Cummings saga, and I don't want to get too political of the show. I think we all have a responsibility to keep everyone safe, but I think it's a case-by-case situation. I don't want to go and comment on that one. But, I mean, for myself, it's really hard to follow the advice because being sort of risk, it means you can't go out at all. And for me, that's been really difficult. But I think tomorrow I might go for a little walk, make sure I get really early. And I think if you put all the measures in place, like have a mask on, gloves on, it should be fine. And I think I might just try to do like one walk to help me with that. And I say thank you for watching. I really enjoy it. And I thought before I go, I think I'll just sort of tell you what we got planned for next week. So really good shows I'm really looking forward to. On Monday, we got an exclusive. Really excited to find out. So I'm in the much star studio in this. We've got the BBL guys coming on to talk about something, an exclusive news for Monday evening. So head of communication there, they've got an exciting story they want to share with us, so I'm looking forward to that. I hope I'm not selling it too much, but I'll see what they come on. But they said it's an exclusive, so I'm looking forward to talking about that. Then the rest, we've got some really good guest lineup. I've got a few NBL2 guys come on, and then we get stories, got a few players on. I'll post feature in the next few days on what's coming up. So, kind of official. Hope you guys are well. Keep staying safe. There's definitely a sense that we're coming towards some sort of normality. So I just really hope you're well and safe. And I can't wait to see once I see again. If that's that Kessel's game or a neutral game, and I'm looking forward to when we can see Barcelona come back soon. But we've got a lot of time on our hands. I think it's great to see football's going on, but obviously it's not as easy to have access to basketballs. I think a lot of motivation on Premier League come back is unfortunately it's money, but it does seem they're doing everything they can to make it as safe as possible for players in terms of having social distance for training, testing all the players, playing behind closed doors. And I think we really good for people who have watched some sport. I just hope no players' safety is compromised or that their direct family or people they come across and say it's a hidden virus, so you don't really know the effects or anything until it's there. But fingers crossed that's there. We've got until June, July, August, 4 months. So hopefully we can get this under control, get Barcelona back. That's everything from me. I hope you stay well, stay safe. If you have any questions at all, anyone you'd like me to talk to, just drop me a DM and I'll try and get them on the show. If you're new to the channel, obviously like and subscribe. Upstreamedia do a great job delivering daily content during this time, but they also be live streaming Telltale Cavaliers games, so if you want to watch them back, by all means, all the videos there for you to watch. That's everything from me here. I'm Chris from Rebound. Take care, stay safe, and God bless you all, and see you all soon. Bye now.